Morning, Sego. Hello everyone and welcome back to our seasonal cooking series. This week we will be making salad dressings. You received the ingredients for 3 different dressings. We'll be making a lemon vinaigrette, an Italian dressing, and a ranch dressing. I think we'll start with the easiest dressing of the 3, so we'll try the lemon vinaigrette dressing first. For this recipe, you're going to use half a cup of lemon juice, 1 cup of olive oil, 2 garlic cloves, half a teaspoon of salt, a quarter teaspoon of thyme, a half a teaspoon of basil, and a quarter teaspoon of black pepper. So grab those ingredients and we'll get started. Everyone should have received a shaker cup similar to this one in your kit. We chose to send these along just to be able to give you that extra hand when it comes to making sure you've got all of your ingredients mixed well together. I'm going to go ahead and use a mason jar today, not because I don't like the shaker cup. I'm just making all 3 at once. I want to be able to store them properly in the fridge. I've grabbed my 1 cup measurer, and we will start with 1 cup of extra virgin olive oil. Now we'll use half a cup of lemon juice. You can always use freshly squeezed lemon juice. You'd need approximately 2 large lemons to do this. So we've got our oil and our lemon juice, and we can already see that they're separating. So now I've got a half a teaspoon of salt. And now we'll go with a quarter teaspoon of thyme leaves, a quarter teaspoon of black pepper, and a quarter teaspoon of dried basil. That's right, we need to add some water. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of water. So we've got everything we need in the jar right now, except for our garlic. So for this recipe, we're going to use 2 cloves of garlic. Make sure you peel your garlic, and then we'll get ready to mince our garlic. I'm a little strange. I don't know what it is or why I do it, but I always cut the ends off of everything, even bananas. So you don't need to do this. It's just something weird that I do. From there, we're just going to go ahead and cut up our garlic and then chop it down to make it finely minced. Once you've got your garlic minced down to a size that works for you and your family, you can go ahead and add it into your shaker cup, your jar, whatever it is that you're making this lemon vinaigrette in. And there we go, we've got all of our ingredients in. So put the top back on your container and shake away. There you have your lemon vinaigrette dressing. Now let's get started with our homemade ranch dressing. For this particular recipe, you're going to use 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise, 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk, 1 garlic clove, 1 small onion, 2 teaspoons of parsley, 2 teaspoons of chives, 1 teaspoon of dill weed, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper. So again, grab all of those ingredients and we'll get started. I am going to go ahead and use a jar again for this recipe. However, the shaker cup is also a great way to mix everything together. So go ahead and choose whichever container you would like to work with. We're going to get started with our buttermilk. Again, we'll use 3/4 of a cup. Next, we're going to grab 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise. You'll see here I'm using Hellmann's. I do remember as a child though, my mom preferred Miracle Whip. Either way, it's a personal preference, so go ahead and use whichever you prefer. So there's our buttermilk and our mayonnaise. That's going to make up the base of this recipe. So now we're going to need our 1 teaspoon measure. Oops, sorry about that. So we're going to use 2 teaspoons of parsley. Yes, chives. 2 teaspoons of chives. And 1 teaspoon of dill. We'll use 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper. Now for our garlic. This recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of fresh garlic. Our family loves garlic. I'm not going to be too precise about the measuring here, so I'm just going to go ahead and use 2 cloves of garlic and figure that that should be enough. Go ahead and peel your garlic. I noticed this little spot on mine, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off. Now you can begin to chop and mince your garlic, just like we did with the previous recipe. Once you've got that finished, go ahead and add it in. This recipe also calls for 2 teaspoons of onion. And I'm not exactly sure what 2 teaspoons of onion is supposed to look like, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started with this piece. chop and mince your onion to a size that you feel will suit your family's needs. Now, I'm not entirely sure of what happened during the whole filming process. All I know is that somewhere at this particular point, the camera stopped. Once you've added that chopped onion into your container, go ahead and shake it up, and it should look something similar to this. And there you have your homemade ranch dressing. This particular recipe can stay in the fridge for anywhere between 7 to 10 days after you've made it. It's great for adding to salads or using as a veggie dip. It's something that my kids really enjoy, and I hope that yours do too, and that it encourages them to eat more of their veggies. Now for our third and final recipe, and perhaps the most complex, or at least the one with the most ingredients. For this recipe, you're going to use half a cup of olive oil, a quarter cup of white vinegar, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of honey, 1 teaspoon of dried basil, 1 teaspoon of dried parsley, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper, a 1/2 teaspoon of crushed red pepper, and 3 tablespoons of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. So go ahead, grab those ingredients, and then we'll get started. Let's start with half a cup of olive oil. Next, we'll use a 1/4 cup of white wine vinegar. And 2 teaspoons of honey. Now, I'm opening this and I'm wondering what the heck it is. I asked my daughter to grab it on her way home, and it looks really thick. You'll notice I'm also using a tablespoon measurer. Do not do what I'm doing here. You only want 2 teaspoons of regular honey. This is apparently amber honey, and it's very thick. Now we'll add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, one teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of basil, 1 teaspoon of parsley, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm using a 1/4 teaspoon measurer, so I'm going to go ahead and do this 3 times. And a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And we're going to last add 1/2 a teaspoon of crushed red pepper. And now for my favorite part, 3 tablespoons of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. And it's really as easy as that. That's all of the ingredients we need for this simple Italian dressing. That would have been very messy. Make sure your lid is on properly and give it a shake. And there you have your own homemade Italian dressing. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that you find these 3 different salad dressings absolutely delicious. I also want to point out that in these recipes we were using dried herbs. With that being said, these salad dressings will taste the best if you leave them in the fridge for at least 6 hours, preferably overnight. That way the dried herbs can rehydrate themselves and give their many different flavors to the dressings themselves. Again, thanks so much for joining me, and until next time, Ona.